The Persians send heralds to Athens and demand payment of customary taxes. The Athenians throw them into a pit to die. Athens has spit in the face of the world's most powerful empire.
Throughout history, alliances often come with unintended consequences, but few have the magnitude of the treaty between Athens and Persia. If the Athenians never asked for Persian help against the Spartans, the world might be a completely different place today. It sets off centuries of conflict between the East and the West.
And the first major battle is Marathon, where more than 20,000 Persian infantry, cavalry, and archers are preparing to burn Athens to the ground. The Athenian general Miltiades and 10,000 Greek infantrymen are colossally overmatched. But Miltiades does have one advantage.
How does he offset the inferiorities that he suffers relative to the Persian forces? And the answer, as almost always in antiquity, is the same. Terrain, terrain, terrain. Location, location, location.
Historians debate the exact route the Persians would have taken to get from Marathon to Athens. Some believe they would have taken the coastal road, a route that passes through the Vrexiza swamp.
But then you would have had to go through a swamp, which was doable. But then you would have been a problem where the Persian army would have been in column of march, trying to gain the road with the Athenian army on its flank. Always a bad idea.
The only other way to Athens is through the mountains, beginning at the Vrana Valley.
If the Persian army intends to invade Athens, it's got to go through the mouth of that valley. And it's not very wide. It's not very wide. So what Miltiades does, he decides to block the valley. And he deploys his troops in the mouth of the Vrana Valley in order to make it impossible for the Persians to advance further.
Miltiades has positioned his infantry in the valley like a cork in a bottle. The Athenian phalanx is made up of lines of tightly organized, interlocking warriors. They can move forward and back easily, but not side to side.
The phalanx formation is incredibly effective at holding ground and moving forward. With rows of men packed tightly together, they use each other's overlapping shields to form an armored wall.
Miltiades anchors his flanks on the rocky sides of the hill and then goes about chopping down trees to put them on the flanks as well. Why does he do this? He's well aware of the fact that the weakness of the Greek phalanx is its flanks. Whenever it has died in battle, it has died because it's been taken in the flanks, either by another phalanx or mostly by cavalry.
In the valley, the flanks of the phalanx are well protected.
So you're not going to rely on the steepness and the rocks alone. You pile it with brush and trees and logs so that there can't be any cavalry attack. So just by positioning his troops where he has essentially taken the cavalry out of the fight. Brilliant maneuver.
The Persian commander Datis is not concerned and assembles his infantry. For 3 days, the Persians line up for battle. But the Greeks choose not to engage them and stay in their protective zone.
It wins the day if there's no fight at all. Its job essentially is to protect Athens by blocking the road. So if you would like to stay here for several weeks, that was quite okay with Miltiades. It's not okay, of course, with the Persians.
Finally, the frustrated Persians initiate an attack. The Athenians form up for battle. But the Persians do not immediately send in their infantry. They first launch a blistering barrage of arrow fire. Under a tidal wave of missiles, there is nowhere for the Athenians to hide. 490 BC. It's the Athenian Greeks versus the mighty Persians on the plains of Marathon. The Persians draw first with a devastating arrow attack.
of mist literally blocking out the sun, raining down on the Athenians. But you know what? The Athenians brushed the arrow fire away like annoying gnats.
Thousands of Persian arrows, very few Athenian casualties. And despite being outnumbered 2-1, the Athenians, led by General Miltiades, taunt the Persians. The Persians are on a mission. Break through the wall of Greek soldiers, march to Athens, and burn the city to the ground.
Exactly what happens next is up for debate. Every historian has his theory of what went down at Marathon and why. And that's because we only have one real source, the Greek historian Herodotus.
The problem is that Herodotus is more like the world's first blogger than an objective historian. He blends events, myths, anecdotes, hearsay into this great story, but nobody in their right mind believes it's all true. So who attacked who first at Marathon and why? Well, from the Athenian position, there's no need to attack anyone.
But Datis, the Persian commander, is itching for a fight. After the failed missile attack, there's only one thing for him to do.
All that's left is a frontal assault. Now you're going to have to mix it up head-on, one-on-one.
10,000 Persian light infantrymen charge across the Marathon plain. Waiting for them is the Athenian phalanx, a bronze wall of spears and shields. More than 1 million pounds of flesh and bone collide. Helping the Athenians create this wall is the hoplon shield.
The Greek shield, known as the hoplon, is more than just a glorified garbage can lid. It's a revolutionary innovation in warfare.
The hoplon is a large, circular, bowl-shaped shield made of wood and faced with bronze. It can withstand arrows and punishing sword blows without splintering. But what makes it truly remarkable is what's called an Argive grip. The soldier passes his arm through a leather loop in the middle of the shield and holds onto a handle near the rim.
And why this is important is it gives you very good control, much more force with the shield, whereas the old tether grip in the center wouldn't allow you to produce a lot of force with it.
The Athenians stop the crushing charge. Now they go on the offensive. The Athenians' primary weapon is the heavy ashwood spear called the dory. 7 feet long, tipped with sharpened iron, the dory can smash through shields and armor. This spear is not thrown. It's used to stab the enemy with a gruesome thrust. In the 6th century BC, most Athenian warriors wear lightweight lamellar armor, made of bonded strips of linen and leather. Some, however, wear heavy, rigid cuirasses, bronze plates sculpted to look like a muscular torso. Bronze helmets with distinctive horsehair plumes protect their heads, while greaves protect their lower legs. In full battle gear, the hoplites are armored head to toe.
The problem for the Persians at Marathon is they're up against a determined Athenian phalanx that doesn't scatter during the arrow barrage. The Persian light infantry also doesn't have their usual cavalry support. So it's just sickle swords and wicker shields against a bronze wall of Athenians.
The Persian commander Datis sends in wave after wave of light infantry assaults. Each time, however, they impale themselves on the solid Athenian wall of spears. The Persians are unrelenting. Defeat is not an option.
The issue of imperial prestige is at stake. I mean, what in all hell's name could possibly have motivated this pipsqueak of a nation, this backwater, to insult the largest empire on earth?
For the Persians, Marathon is about more than just a broken treaty. It's also punishment for Athens' support of a revolution against Persia 10 years earlier in nearby Ionia. Once an Athenian Greek colony, Ionia was absorbed as a province by the Persian Empire in 540 BC. But 40 years later, in 500 BC, a local tyrant incited a revolution. The people of Ionia then asked Athens for help.
Athens was seen by her colonies as the kind of the mother country. And my guess, Athens considered herself the mother country. And so when her colonies asked for help, she sent troops. It was a mistake of the first order, to be sure, but that's probably what motivated. Certainly it could not possibly be justified on the grounds of rational self-interest.
The Athenians were joined by a force from Eretria in nearby Euboea. They sailed across the Aegean to Ionia and stormed the capital of Sardis. It is another Athenian slap in the face the Persians will never forget. 500 BC, 10 years before the Battle of Marathon, the Ionian Revolt has begun. Several Greek contingents, including Athenians, attacked Persian-controlled Sardis, the Ionian capital, and burned the city to the ground. To make matters worse for Persia, at the same time they are fighting wars in India, Egypt, and Scythia.
The Ionian rebels score a major blow, but the victory is short-lived. The Persians increase their force levels and begin to suppress the Ionian revolt.
The Athenians, knowing that discussion was the better part of valor, went home, as did the Euboeans. And the Ionian revolt simmered on and off for the next 5 years until it finally simmered out and flared out, and Persia recaptured the Ionian coast.
But the Persian king Darius is furious. He vows vengeance.
Darius calls upon his god to grant him vengeance against the Athenians. He even makes a servant come up to him 3 times every night during dinner and whisper in his ear, "Sire, remember the Athenians." So even while he's dealing with Egypt and wars in India and Scythia, Athenian payback is always on his mind.
King Darius attempts to exact revenge on the Athenians in 490 BC at Marathon. But so far, the Athenians have survived a massive Persian missile attack. And now they are holding fast against the Persian light infantry. General Miltiades has brilliantly positioned his defensive force. The Greek heavy infantry phalanxes are jammed in a narrow opening between the mountains, blocking the path to Athens.
The Persians had chosen the battlefield, okay, by landing at Marathon, but the Athenians had chosen the terrain by using it to maximum advantage. And it's an old trick.
But an effective one, as the Persian light infantry doesn't even dent the Athenian wall.
The Persian light infantry retreats, but now Miltiades must face the elite force of the Persian army, the heavy infantry, the Immortals.
The legendary Immortals are the stormtroopers of the Persian Empire. Faceless, they march into battle in complete silence. They are the Athenians' worst nightmare. In addition to their brutal killing ability, the presence of the Immortals forces Miltiades to change his tactics.
Miltiades, although he has prepared the battlefield expertly and to give him every advantage, still suffers from a great disadvantage. And that is the area in which he occupies, although it's relatively narrow, okay, is still wider than he has sufficient troops to cover. What he does is he weakens his center and moves the additional troops out. So that when you look at the deployment of the Athenian force, you're looking at a force that is relatively thin in the center, but has heavy phalanxes on either side.
Weakening the center of his phalanx is a huge gamble. But then Miltiades rolls the dice again. He advances his line out of the protective valley.
If he stays where he is, he knows that when the center gets hit, it's going to flex in. The problem when it flexes in, if he stays where he is there's not enough room for his heavy phalanxes on the end to maneuver inward. There's not enough room. They're jammed up against the terrain. So he has a very, very delicate tactical problem, and it's this.
Miltiades must move his troops far enough to be able to extend his line so the phalanxes can maneuver.